Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We are, of course, your multi-award winning Tottenham Hotspur podcast. We're back in some kind of form where we are ready to understand the next stage of Tottenham and where things are at. It does feel like some kind of video game that you can't get out right now, and we want to understand the next checkpoint in the status of Tottenham Hotspur. Helping me, this is a proper Tottenham panel, proper Tottenham. 3 wonderful returning regular guests. Unfortunately, suffering since to get hold of us back on the show. I'm joined by, God, I see one of my wife at the moment, and I'm not complaining. I shouldn't be saying that too loud. I've got the superb Billy T back alongside me. Bill, how are you, mate?
Yeah,
these are the grey shift hours, right? What we're putting in here.
Yeah,
I tell you.
Very honoured to be on with these two absolute legends. So yeah, what a panel.
Bless you. Listen, looking forward to this one. First on the show, delighted to have him back. Musician, never too shy of a few words about his beloved Tottenham. We've got Joel back on the show. Joel, lovely to have you here, mate. Welcome back to the Madhouse.
Yeah, I don't know what to say, mate. You know, I mean, yesterday I was working and I kept turning the phone on and off. I was working with people that are not football fans, so I couldn't even try. I think they just thought I was a bit restless or something because I didn't even want to talk about it. But I kept turning. I sort of caught our goals. It was like a dream. You know, sometimes you have I can occasionally get real anxiety dreams about doing a show and you turn up and you haven't told the band and you're in front of an audience and the band's not there. And then, you know, someone appears on stage you shouldn't, you know, it just gets all surreal and weird and you wake up thinking, oh, thank God, it's just a dream. It was like a bad dream with the slipping, that Sunday Park stuff. We've all been there, haven't we? Where, you know, we thought it was going to be a pitch. It's a bit, you haven't got, you know, or you've got your boots, you've got to borrow trainers and you're slipping all over the place. I mean, I didn't know that about their pitch, Atletico, but bloody hell, Tottenham should have done. You know, it's just typical Tottenham, just not being professional, you know, and that poor Kinski, just a very random thing. Yeah, chuck him in for a Champions League game. Go on, what could go wrong? You know, it just made no sense. And then throw him under the bus. You know, I saw your thing earlier, some of it on TalkSport, Ricky, and it was that ex-Villa pro, the striker, the tap.
Gabby Bonahol.
Yeah, and no, the other guy, the Welsh striker. I've got his name. Dean Saunders. Yeah. I think it was him saying, you know, what's up with your senior pros of Romero and Van der Ven when as soon as that first goes in, when we try to play it out from the back as ever, just say to him, look, son, just knock it long. We're under pressure. We're away from home. Just get rid of it, you know? And, you know, there's no calm leadership there. And then when it finished with a clash of heads, which was sitting in and maybe concussion protocols are coming into play now, and they'll end up missing as Polini and Romero. But honestly, it was just, you know, you wouldn't. It's such a daft thing to happen because everything's just out of control. You know, it's just out of control. You've got a gaffer. It's not worth discussing, Tudor, for me, because it's like saying, you know, you're at the end. You're on the Eastern Front, you know, and it's all going wrong, and you're going to blame the latest general. But the whole thing's a clusterfuck going back years. There's no point in saying, well, this bloody general we've got, you know, what's led to this?
Well, do me a favour, Jar. I'm going to come back round to you. Hold that thought. We are going to have to, unfortunately, discuss Igor Tudor. Before we do, let me bring in Lubo back. Ian Lubin back in from the Spurs 5. Lubo, lovely to have you here, mate. How are you? Unmute for us if you can. Let's check there's a pulse in there. Are you okay? We all need to get on. Everyone's already Tottenham'd out. Lubo, let's get you to unmute. How are you, mate?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, I've got my coffee to keep me going tonight. It was it's been a disaster of a season, what has been since the beginning of November. And you just knew I sort of going up on the escalators, talking to the guys at Sports Options, and the plane was sold out 50% only, which is quite rare. And it's, you know, it's a lovely ground. Please, I won't be going back to it for a little while. I've had 2 trips there that have not been the best. But it's just where we are, and this is, as I've said several times, people who know me, this is 25 years in the making. People shouldn't be surprised.
Well, look, let's bring everybody back into what is the headline news of the day, because I think many might have thought we would be gathered here discussing or potentially having a quite different show in store. But the confirmation is in that Igor Tudor, as for now, will be taking the reins for the game against Liverpool and is scheduled to hold his press conference on Friday. So as things stand, he will be in the hot seat. He will be managing Tottenham for at least one more time. During this show, we'll be discussing the concerns around the squad, the dressing room unrest that is understood to be, unfortunately, ripping through the squad, ripping through the leadership group, and the concerns we have in general for what we've been understood is that a lot of these players have no faith in Igor Tudor, despite the fact it looks like he's going to take at least one more game in charge of Tottenham Hotspur. Also, at the time of us producing this show, there's been several, I'd say multiple links to players that could be on the move. Lubo's beloved Archie Gray, there's understood to be interest in him from Bayern Munich. Yeah, apparently Bayern Munich interested in Archie Gray. There's also understood to be interest in Lucas Bergvall from both Chelsea and Aston Villa. We are also hearing that Luka Vuskovic is not keen on a return back to Tottenham Hotspur next season and would like to potentially ply his trade elsewhere. We'll be getting the guys' thoughts some more on that. And also, in the event that Igor Tudor still maybe in a crazy world that is Tottenham is let go before the Liverpool game, what other options may Spurs turn to if they deem Igor Tudor not to be the man? Harry Redknapp has spoken publicly in this last 24 hours, as has Tim Sherwood as well. Sean Dyche, it's understood by some news outlets, is now understood to be the favourite to take over as Tottenham Hotspur manager. Something I'd never thought I'd ever say on Last Word on Spurs. Quite incredible where this podcast is going. If you can for us out there, guys, like, hype, subscribe to the show. Bill, let me open with you on this edition of Last Word on Spurs, mate. We've been together for the last 24, 48 hours. I think there was genuine hope that this was going to be the second show of Igor Tudor, but it isn't. It looks like he is going to be in the hot seat for that game against Liverpool. I don't know if I was asking you, Bill, how surprised you are or not surprised that you are that Igor Tudor remains, as things stands, the Tottenham Hotspur head coach.
Yeah, I'm surprised, mate, to be honest. And just going back to what you were just saying there, Vuskovic is not keen on returning to Tottenham next season. Neither am I, mate, but we have to. It's what we do, I'm afraid. You're under contract, mate. You don't have a choice, and neither do I. Neither of us do. So we'll both be returning to Tottenham next season, thank you. And I thought he was gone. I mean, the stuff coming out about the players today, it's, Matt Law reported it, then it came out in the Times as well. That usually is the signal that it's over. It's happened to every manager, including people like Ange, and Pochettino got that treatment even. So, that's a clear sign that the end is nigh. I just kind of think there's either two things at play here. One, they're either just thinking the Liverpool game is a free hit anyway, and they don't want to give, if they hire someone like Dyche to come in and then they get smacked by Liverpool, it sort of knocks all that momentum gone. And the other thing is maybe they just don't have a bloody clue what they're doing, which I think is the more likely option. I don't think they know what to do. There was an interesting report that came out today that said ENIC do not want to get involved in the decision. And they're going to leave it to Vinay and Langer. I think reading between the lines there, that's basically essentially saying they're going to sack them in summer because everything is their fault from now on in. I think what you can read between the lines there, for me anyway, personally, I think they'll both be gone in summer, and thank God for that. But it's just an absolute ridiculous situation because I think, don't want to read too much into the absolute craziness of last night, but I think what it has done is further cemented the fact that there is no relationship between Tudor and the players. From what it sounds like in the wake of that, Kinski is a very, very popular on the squad, and I don't think the players have liked the way that he was treated by the sounds of things. Seems to have made it worse. So he's just a dead man walking, and whether it's after Liverpool, it's after Atletico. My personal opinion is I pray that it's before Forest, because that Forest game is like a cup final for us. And if he's our manager for that game, I don't know if we'll win it.
I agree. I do agree. When you look at the upcoming fixtures for Tottenham, I mean, this was always the option on the task they had in hand, Lou, but I come over to you because they had to make a decision in terms of whether they were going to bring a new interim in for the upcoming game against Liverpool in the Premier League, and therefore they would also have to contest that second leg against Atletico Madrid, or whether they would give the new manager the opportunity against Nottingham Forest, which you probably feel on paper, and look, it feels like Spurs, how can you judge them on paper right now because we've not even won a game in 2026, but Forest feels like the potential next winnable game. It feels like a final. How surprised were you, Lubo, to wake up to the news that as things stands, Igor Tudor scheduled to hold that press conference on Friday and is, as of now, the Spurs head coach? But it must be said, it's not a cast iron guarantee he will definitely be there, but a strong indication with those within the club believe he will be. How surprised are you, Lubo, he's still in charge of this football club?
Not surprised at all, to be honest. We got owners that haven't got a clue what they're doing. There's nobody with any football knowledge at the club, period. Don't care whether Vinay's been at Arsenal for 14 years, don't care whether Lang's been around the football scene for years. They're all useless. So why would it be a surprise? Frank was left, unfortunately, in situ. Although I do feel sorry for him with the lack of players, lack of quality that he had at his disposal. He still should have gone a few weeks earlier. There's no contingency plans ever. They haven't got a clue. The club's completely rudderless. I think this is the worst I've ever seen it. I know football's changed an awful lot since the last time we were relegated, but even then, the club got in Keith Birkinshaw the year before we went down, or the start of that season. Stayed with him. He brought us back up, got Ozzy and Ricky straight away, went and got Archibald and Crooks a couple of years later, and then won 3 trophies in 4 years. Which I know football's changed. It's in terms of the money side, completely. It's another world. We are miles away from that, which is light years away. And although I'm still, just because I go most weeks and because it's just me, I still think that we've got a chance of getting out of this. I think the return of Kudus, Udogie and Bergvall, I do think will make some sort of difference. And this losing run's got to finish. But am I surprised Tudor's still there? With these owners, I mean, the owners haven't got a clue. They're leaving it to supposedly learned people in these two. And that, if they knew what they were doing, they would have got rid of these two. In fact, really, these two wouldn't be at the club. It's nonsense. The whole thing's nonsense. A club that's worth billions doesn't have an expert in that in the main core of the business, the main core business on the board. The whole thing's a farce. It's this is a football club that hasn't been run by a football club, run as a football club for many, many years, and here we are. It's the cupboard's bare now. All the good administrators like Barber and Edwards gone, top managers have gone, top players have gone, and this is what we're left with. And you just look at the decline over the last 3 years, and winning the Europa papered over a lot of cracks. Instead of being worried that 22 defeats would have put us down normally in a league season, would have got us relegated. And the fact that the bottom 3 last year was so poor, we were never involved in a relegation fight. But normally 22 defeats, and you'd be looking at relegation, and it was ignored. The warning signs weren't out. Again, because we had a chairman who didn't know what he was doing. The whole thing's a shambles. It's so not surprised we're where we are, and not surprised that Tudor's still there. He's after what happened last night, should he have? Personally, I would have kept Kinski on for another 10 minutes. I would have assessed if his head was completely shot after those 2 mistakes. I wouldn't have pulled him off after 15 minutes, that's for sure. And I think, if he'd have got himself together, then okay. If he'd have been got himself and playing playing well, then you keep him on, and if not, you hook him at half time. And just to stand there and not say anything to him as he trudged off the pitch. I mean, that will follow Kinski. Whenever people hear his name, they will think of last night. And that's not fair on the kids.
Yeah. I know many have suggested that point, Lubo, that some may have felt that what he's done to that kid is destroyed his career by bringing him off.
No. It wouldn't have destroyed his career.
Yeah. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. I mean, I'll be amazed if we see him back in a Spurs shirt. I have to be honest, on the back of that display that we did see. Jar, if I just want to come over to you, just want to get your immediate reaction to that news. Igor Tudor, he's been here, 26 days in the job. I have to be honest with you, in those 26 days, I've not seen one positive action to suggest why this man deserves any further game, any further time around the training ground. And I'm actually quite concerned about still him being in and around the players, like Billy's mentioned, because we're going to come on in a minute to discuss just the impact he's having in that dressing room. And unfortunately, it's not a positive one. Like we said in our post-match show after the game, he was asked whether he deserved to carry on as Spurs manager after the 4 defeats in 4 games. It ensured that Tottenham lost 6 consecutive matches for the first time in their entire history. And he just simply come back with no comment. Now, he's also the first Spurs manager in history to lose 4 games in his first 4. Jar, your immediate reaction to the news that Igor Tudor looks like he is going to be here for that Liverpool game. Are you surprised?
I don't know if I can be surprised at anything with Tottenham. It doesn't look like there's... It looks like Vinay and Langer are calling the shots still. We can't be certain of that. The comms are not great within the club, so everything's rumour. And of course, because there's not clear comms, then rumours start. So I think you said earlier, Ricky, it's rumoured that ENIC are not getting involved in the decision, and I think surely it must be a bit involved. So. The comms are bad. You don't know what's going on there. It's, as I said earlier, it's too easy just to start just thinking of Tudor. Obviously he hasn't had any effect. I was at the Fulham game, and really hoping we'd show up there, and it just all looks all over the shop. The players look unsure of what they're supposed to be doing. The Kinski thing yesterday, you just think, like I said earlier, just randomly throw Kinski in for a Champions League game. What's the thinking? Is kicking supposed to be better or something? Or is it just because Tudor knew the fans were calling for Kinski to start games? But you see, what other big club would have 2 kind of young keepers who tend to flap a little bit? And they probably tend to flap because the defensive organisation around them isn't particularly sound. So you can't find, it's like when a patient starts to die, I suppose, in hospital, and maybe they're old, and one major organ starts to go down, and then another major organ. And you work hard, you get the heart pumping again, and and then you do dialysis with the kidneys, and it's just one thing. And in the end, there's just too much going wrong. So Tudor copped the blame for it. I mean, why was it Tudor in this? Because Paratici liked him. So the outgoing co-director of football, yet again, what other serious club has 2 directors of football? I'm not even sure of the job titles, but you had him and Langer. There was never any comms about, well, we got 2 directors of football. This one does young players in Northern Europe. This one does players elsewhere or Southern Europe. Do you know what I mean? There was no demarcation line. I don't think that was explained. So we end up with 2. Now before that we had a keeper, that Forster geezer, who seemed a nice geezer, a big lump of a guy. Obviously, I think he was quite old, wasn't he? Maybe late 30s even. He was quite an old, and I know keepers can be old. But any serious club has a proper keeper, and they have a proper keeper pushing the proper, you know, Vine, you know, Kelleher and Allison that live, obviously, you know.
Yep.
And then maybe you have a younger guy that's come up through the ranks as well as the number 3 and, you know, number 4 coming through your academy. Yesterday, you know, I mean, so I don't think Tudor's doing the right thing at all. But yesterday, you know, we're depending on Sarr and Gray in midfield, which to me is just mad. Yet again, it's quite random. Why the hell wouldn't you start with Gallagher and Polina there and one other? You need 3 in midfield really against a team like Atletico Madrid, you know. And you might as well put an arm around Gallagher and tell him he's your main man, because he kind of is. But, you know, with another aspect from this year, we've ended up depending on Gray and Bergvall. You know, yet again, what serious club depends on youngsters? And they're good, but I don't know if they're that good. I think by default, with this tempering kind of process they've gone through, they're both going to come out of it as better players, probably paying for better clubs. But we all know what the problem is. I know Lubo, Billy, and I know you do. As Lubo said earlier, we've had 25 years of disownership. And even before then, we had a good few years with Alan Sugar, who, you know, to be fair, got, for whatever reason, obviously sold the club. But there was never a load of money pumped in, was there? Even before ENIC, there was never a feeling the club had a serious intent and was directed towards being able to win things. And then ENIC's come in. There's been some sensible business practice, which isn't difficult. It's the same thing if you run a bloody sweet shop, you know. Old blokes like me, you know, over the years, and Lubo, you know, have paid, you know, paid our tickets, our season tickets year in, year out. And that was all good. And they've used that season ticket money every year, and they've built and they've, you know, followed good business practice. And then they've brought a load of money, haven't they? Built a lovely, shiny new stadium and everything. And now blokes like me can't get an OAP ticket, you know. And there's a feeling that blokes like me really don't want you there now. We'd rather have a tourist from America or Korea spending 1,500 quid in the shop on a game. Well, the funny fucking thing is, when we're away to fucking Lincoln next year and all that caper, and I own to them, I wonder what the Premier Seats ticketing will be for fucking Lincoln. 5 for a one-er. Yeah, bring 5 of your fucking mates, 20 quid in you go, have some sarnies, yeah, because they'll fucking want us back next year, the loyal fans, because the fucking tourists won't be there spending £1,500 on a championship team, you know. So the whole thing, there's never been a serious intent, and I think a lot of Tottenham fans feel like me. You feel like you've kind of been had, because there's been a lot of jam tomorrow sort of statements open the club over the years. You know, we want to win more often. We're always linked when it's season ticket renewal time. We're linked with, you know, Lionel Messi, or we're linked with, you know, Mbappe and fantastic players, and they never come. We can't even get the tier below that over the line. So we, you know, there's muddle thinking. And if you're not, you either got to have a lot of money and be fairly smart, or be very, very smart like Brentford and Brighton and have some budget as well, you know. But if you're just daft, you know, and you're not, you know, not with a business, because they've got a nice event stadium now. It's a very neutral stadium. I mean, in the cold light of day, you wouldn't really know, would you, if you're in that stadium? It's Tottenham Stadium. It's just a big neutral stadium that uses light projections depending on where it's at. So we all know, that's really it. So we're now in a situation where Buddhists would say this is karma coming to fruition, or you could say the chickens are coming out the roast, pun intended. The cat is out the bag. Finally, it catches up with you. And the funny thing is, even last year, it's very similar to the year we went down in the 70s. Ubo would remember. We had the warning the year before. We didn't listen. We made an inexplicably bad managerial appointment, bringing in Terry Neal. You know, just inexplicable. No one could believe it at the time. And we didn't replace like with like. So we reached a European final in 74. It was the first major final we ever lost, believe it or not. And everybody knew that this team didn't win that final. They're a little bit over the hill. It needs new blood. So we let Saunis go to Middlesbrough at that time because he wanted to play, but no, off he went, you know. And then we ended up playing with, you know, kind of players who just weren't up to it, technically weren't good enough. And it doesn't take long in football, 2 or 3 years, and we went down. Yeah, we actually finished bottom that year. It's very similar. Didn't replace like we like. Didn't heed the warning of the season before, and we had the warning last year, you know, and it's just like asleep at the wheel. So, you know, does it surprise me? I would have thought, by the way, with Tudor, what I would suspect, and you don't know because you're not getting any comms, you know, it's a charismaless area with Tottenham, isn't it? With Levy, you know, when he was there, for me, they're charismaless. It's a charisma-free zone, you know. And I think that Vinay and Langer, you know, it's probably that thing, you know, you're on a plane, the plane's going to crash, and you're saying to the guy you think's the pilot, "What are you going to do? The plane's crashing." And the guy says, "I don't know, just let me think." You got to sack him. You got to look. You know you got to sack him. Maybe you talk to him. I don't know. Let me think. Or you ain't got time to think. You know. So maybe, and of course we're going to read a load of things. Harry Redknapp will come back. Sean Dyche. I don't see Sean Dyche working because can you imagine these geezers? You know. And I like Sean Dyche. I like those kind of geezers. But can you imagine him coming? What's he going to fucking say? We got to tighten it up at the back.
Just do me a favour. I promise you, I do want to come on to that in a second. So please, just bear with me. Hold that thought for 1 second. Can I just say to you, Bill, because I think Charles made some really valid points there, which I know we all agree with. But what has come out in this last 24 hours is not only are we backing Tudor to stay, but all we have heard is the dressing room unrest that is following Tudor staying. And this is some of the players are unhappy with the training sessions. And even more so, the fact that from what we're gauging, the Spurs players have absolutely no faith in Igor Tudor, who's overseen, like I said, 4 defeats so far, failed to bond with the squad. And as you said at the start of the show, Bill, we understand that it's leaving Vinay Venkatesham and Johan Lang responsible for appointing Tudor, and they're having to decide whether to sack him either side of this trip to Liverpool and potentially put their own positions under threat. So I just wonder, Bill, when you're hearing these suggestions that, as things stand at the moment, the players have very little faith in him, the squad are frustrated by the way in which Kinski was dealt with and being failed to acknowledge by the manager, and that was understood to be some of the final straw for some of the players in the way that he was dealt with. As Saul said, there is hardly anybody, if anybody at all, in that dressing room who has any faith in him whatsoever. And furthermore to that, it's understood that he's failed to strike up a relationship with Christian Romero. He's done very little to lift the morale of the group or instill any confidence in the individual. So when we're hearing this being reported, Bill, have we just simply put the white flag up for the Liverpool game on Sunday? Because it feels like what we're doing is we're already just writing off another 3 points, which, given our perilous position in the Premier League, I mean, can we really afford to do that, Bill?
Mate, we can't afford to do anything at the moment. You know, we're in a very perilous position. So it's just absolutely baffling, the situation that we find ourselves in. You know, we thought that Thomas Frank and the Arsenal Cup and, you know, mentioning Arsenal every week was bad. But somehow we've managed to walk into another calamity that's even worse. Like, you know, no players like this guy. He hasn't got... I said this yesterday, mate. We're the only Premier League team that I can think of in recent history without a new manager bounce. You know, we didn't even get one game of a bounce. We got a new manager sink, like we sunk further. It's just absolutely ridiculous, mate. And all it comes down to is the fact that we are run by 2 absolute, you know, friend of ours, Paul O'Keefe calls them the Chuckle Brothers, doesn't he? And it comes down to the decision making of these 2 is just absolutely shocking. They're so unbelievably incompetent. I wouldn't, you know. And the fact is, these 2 are the people that are running our football club, and they obviously don't have a clue. And it's a really depressing situation that we find ourselves in, just because we're, you know, our life is on the line, our Premier League survival is on the line. So it all just comes back to incompetent leadership, mate, is what it comes down to. And unfortunately, we've got two of the most incompetent people together running our football club. And I don't see, every single big decision they've made has backfired in some way. Hiring Paratici as a director of football backfired because he left. Sacking Thomas Frank ended up backfiring because they held on to him for so long. The January transfer window was one of the worst windows in our history, and will go down as the worst if we go down. It's just every single decision these guys get wrong. So it doesn't matter when they make the next one. It's just I have no faith in them to get it right.
The difficulty on top of that as well is that, Lubo, while the players accept their roles in Spurs' demise, they've apparently been shell-shocked by Tudor's approach and decision since he replaced Frank on a deal until the end of the season. I think they've been surprised by a number of selections and formation choices. The fact of Pedro Porro, who's asked to start as a right-sided centre-back in a back three in that defeat by Palace and was not equipped to play in that position. Some noted that when Tudor was asked in which position forward Richarlison would play ahead of the first leg thrashing by Atletico Madrid, Porro interrupted and joked, centre-back. And on top of that, you've had João Palhinha, Conor Gallagher, Xavi Simons having all been played in unfavoured positions by Tudor before being dropped, whilst Archie Grasmino has been moved pretty much around the team in the 4 games so far that he's managed. It's understood that the chopping and changing is said to have left the players confused, frustrated, and feeling disconnected. And it's claimed that Tudor needed to be reminded to inform Vicario that it was going to be replaced by Kinski ahead of naming the team for the Atletico game, despite the fact he's been the club's number 1. I mean, how is this guy meant to get a tune out the squad when it feels most of them are absolutely disillusioned? And as I've mentioned in this point here, have absolutely no faith in the fact he can turn us around. Lubo, why is he still here?
It's the whole thing's a farce, isn't it? You would have thought, I didn't know anything about his managerial career before he joined. So like everybody else, read up, he's firefighted in certain countries. And initially he's been successful and he's done the job. So you think to yourself, okay, fine. This guy is going to come in. Before the first training session, which was the Monday before Arsenal, he would have spent the whole weekend going over videos, looking at the players, looking at what's been going wrong this season, how he can put it right. Maybe sit down with the players, see what they think, and listen to the guys who are playing as talk to some legends who go regularly, who are part of the club as ambassadors, and watch all the time, and put all that information together to give yourself a good idea and a good platform for the last 12 games. It appears that he's done none of that. You can't keep putting round pegs in square holes. He's doing that. He's changing system every single week. 3 at the back. The team have hardly played this season, so stick with what they know. Even if it's difficult for you as a manager, have a look at how Amorim failed at United, and learn from that. He wanted to take. He was a continental manager that came across, wanted to play 3 at the back. Didn't work. Didn't have the players to do it. He doesn't have the time. He's not been given a 3-4 year contract, with a team in relative mid-table safety where he can sit and integrate his system within the players and get them to learn it. Doesn't have that time. So you got to adapt very quickly. You'll say, right, I've got 12 games. What are these guys used to? Now, how am I going to tweak it to improve, to stop this free fall and to get back to the first 7, 8, 9 games of the season where 9 games we picked up 17 points. How do we do that? What brought about those points? Okay, you've got certain players that are now injured that are not coming back for the next few weeks. So what am I going to do in the meantime? And it appears he's done none of that. Last night, why didn't he play? If he's going to play 3 at the back, then firstly, you don't bring Kinski in for a Champions League game. He's played 2 games this season against Doncaster and Newcastle in the Carabao Cup. You just don't bring him in for a massive game like that. And forget the fact that we're in trouble and we need the points and relegation financially and long term for the club is potentially catastrophic. Champions League is an extremely prestigious competition. We're in it. You're going to need a massive rebuild. It's going to need a lot of money. So try and go as far as you can. Somehow get these players up. Didn't do it. He left out Vicario. He left out Paulinho and Gallagher. As much as I've always been a supporter of Archie Gray, who I think will be very good over the next couple of years, he's not ready. He shouldn't be in that first 11 starting a game at Atletico Madrid. He's been our best player for the last month. But for what was needed last night in that atmosphere, and it was a brilliant atmosphere, I've got to tell you that their fans get behind it. I only wish our fans got behind our team the way Atletico's fans did. You put experience in there in Paulinho and Gallagher. You leave out Mwani, who's played a handful of decent games out of his 30 plus that he's played this season. You play Solanke, and you've got to have Simmons in. However underwhelming Simmons has been this season, he is our one creative player. So how are you going to create goals? Excuse me, without your most creative player. And excuse me, I'm just about to sneeze. And we scored 2. We could have scored several more. Defensively, this wasn't the Atletico of old. It wouldn't give you a shot. So for me, he got it wrong on five counts out of 11, and this was the result. And we gave him that victory. We just handed to it on a plate with those first 3 goals. And and we were sitting there. I'm looking up, and it's just under 15 minutes, and we're 3-0 down. And below on the top of the stand, going all the way around, you've got all the substitutions. You've got Atletico and Spurs. You've got the goals. You've got everything in massive writing all the way around the top of the stand, the top of the ground. So you can see everything. It's and you're looking at it thinking 3 after 15. How many? It carries on like this. Not that it would ever end up 18-0, but where's it going to finish? 7, 8, 9.
Yeah.
And the goals were appalling. And as Joel was saying earlier, they trained on the pitch the night before. You've got to get your studs right. And they've got so many options with these boots today. You got molded for the dry grounds. You've got different lengths of molded studs. Screw-in studs, should I say? Molded. You've got levels of mold on there as well. So for me, it's so unprofessional. The whole thing is a shambles. Tudor should be on top of that as well. So in terms of footwear, in terms of team selection, and you can't go into a club with the players on their knees after when he joined, we'd gone 8 games without a win. You can't walk in and start throwing your weight around and do it Sergeant Major style. You've got to actually sit and talk to players and understand them and work out the best way you're going to get them motivated. Yeah. And you shouldn't have to, because you can turn around and say that these players are being paid enough money. They should, for the money they earn, they should go out and give it 100%. But there's the mental side of the game as well. And after 8 games without a win, these boys are very low on confidence. Low on confidence stops you making those runs that you would normally make. You just don't. You've got fans on top of the players as well. Players will want to hide as well because of that. And the occasion for players, unfortunately, like Kinski was just too big last night, and he should have realised that. He's an experienced guy, Tudor. And he should have realised you can't just throw a kid who's hardly played for the club. He's played a handful of games, and 2 games this season. He's not played since the end of October. You can't just throw a kid in March and say go out and do your stuff. Yeah. Not in that atmosphere and in that level of match. The whole thing is horrendous, just horrendous.
Look, I want to squeeze in our first break of the show for listeners and audio. Thank you again to the over. We've got about 1,100 here, 1,200, 1,300 watching us live. As always, thank you ever so much for your support for Last Word on Spurs. We're joined by Billy T back alongside me. Bill must feel like he's daily at the moment, given what we are having to be put through at the moment. We're joined by musician Jar Wobble, and we're joined by Lubo from, of course, the Spurs 5. And we've had a question come in, a couple of zones of the show. Nicholas Walker says, can we see Bob Ross instead of Spurs? Cheer us up, please. And Football Heritage TV, Sava says, great show, Ricky. Thank you very much. Another standard week at Spurs. How many points do each of the panel members think we'll get for the rest of the season? I've gone for 7, and that's me being deluded. Look, I'll be honest with you at the moment. I think on the back of the news, Tudor is staying at the football club. I really don't know how we move forward. I fear at the moment with him in charge, and on the back of that news that we've been discussing here of the dressing room unrest and the frustration of the fact that he's still there, and the unhappiness of the players and the mood of the camp and the communication, I found to see how we're going to pick up anything under Tudor. I can't just pick up a solitary point. What I do want to ask you boys is, given that, I want to ask you about failure to work under Tudor. Where do we see us all going? Because this seems to be at the moment a conversation where no one can really give a genuine categorical solution to say this is going to work. But if I ask you about that, we've had some thinking in the last 24, 48 hours. Where are you on this potential interim and what that would look like if it's not going to be Tudor? Because it does appear that the bookies seem to now be favouring Sean Dyche. There's even been suggestions to say that there's been tentative communication with representatives of Sean Dyche. Harry Redknapp's come out publicly and said he doesn't think he's going to be offered the job. That's the likewise also of Tim Sherwood. It's interesting. Ryan Mason isn't someone that I would have really considered, but he does know the club. He does know the players. He was only there recently on the back of being part of a staff squad that won a Europa League trophy. Just where are you, Bill, in terms of the interim, if it isn't going to be Tudor, and then we'll get Jar and Lubo talks on this as well?
First of all, I think it's, Tudor staying is sort of, they're just kicking the can down the road. There's no chance he's going to be our manager beyond the next international break, unless we pull out 3 wins versus Liverpool, Atletico and Forest. And let's be honest, that's not going to happen. So they're delaying when to make the decision is essentially what's happening here. And I'm at the point now where I think whoever comes in, there's such little time left. I don't think it really matters anymore. I think the minimum they need to do is just put some players in the right positions. But at the end of the day, whoever the manager is now, all it's going to come down to now is this group of players. That's all that's left now. Because a manager in 7 or 8 games, they don't have any time to implement any kind of new system. The base minimum they can do is maybe get a little bit of confidence back into them. But at the end of the day, it's only these players that are going to save us now from here on in. And that might fill you with worry. It might well do. And, as we spoke about last night, Rick, I know the fans are going to have their part as well, and we will definitely make sure that happens.
Yeah.
But it's the 11 players on the pitch now which are going to make the difference between us and this and the rest of the season. So I think it's going to have to be someone that's going to go back to basics, and obviously Sean Dyche is the master of that. My particular preference is someone with some kind of connection for Tottenham. I saw someone say, why do they need to be connected to Tottenham? Well, the thing is, as Igor Tudor shows, for someone that's coming in and just treated this like a job, they don't really have any sort of commitment to wanting to stay and keep us up just because it's just another job to him. And Igor Tudor will be the next in the line of managers that will leave this job, and he will blame Tottenham for everything going wrong. It's an easy pass for a manager because you can just say, well, it didn't work for me, but it hasn't really worked for any manager either. So whoever's got to come in has got to have some kind of commitment to wanting to keep this club up. It's got to mean absolutely everything to them like it does to the fans, which is why you want to hope that the Tottenham history is there. But the thing that I keep going back to now, whoever it is, it's going to come down to those group of players now to get us out of there. So the only people that can do it, I don't think the manager is going to make a massive difference now. The variation there is just, there's not enough time. So you just got to hope that just going back to basics, someone like Sean, if it was me, I'd go Sean Dyche and Ryan Mason together. Do you know what I mean? Then you got Sean Dyche, who handled this situation before, Ryan Mason, who knows the club. Even get them all in, get Harry Redknapp there as well. Glenn Hoddle, just get loads. I don't even know what to do, mate. But it doesn't really matter who the manager is now. It's going to come down to that squad of players, which is why it's so important for us fans to get behind them in the running.
Do you share Billy's view on that, Jar? Do you also believe that it's going to be more about the players than a coach at this stage? Do you share that view, or do you think, Jar, if we can bring the right person in, they can have the effect? Let's bring you off mute, Jar, and get your thoughts on that for you.
Before I answer that, just answer that question that somebody asked you about, how many points we win. Right now, we're so bad. People say you could beat a fucking Sunday League team. Well, I don't think we could beat a National League team at the moment and possibly a regional league team. You saw how Macclesfield done in the FA Cup. Macclesfield would get the better of us at the moment, but it would. And I'm not even joking. It's a fact, right? I think form-wise, apart from Sheffield Wednesday, certainly home form, we're the worst in the four divisions.
That's correct.
That's something. So you can confidently say Tottenham, definitely maybe the worst league professional club in the country at the moment. For a big club, probably one of the very worst, if not the worst in Europe, possibly the world. This is a world-class failure we're looking at. It really is world-class, with a stadium with Beyonce playing there and all that, makes it even kind of more galling, really, But with a manager, I think everybody knows you need somebody to come in who's half sensible, engages with the players, because it's a case of, right, we're up shit creek without a paddle here, lads, as you know. So, maybe it's somebody like Glenn Hodd who used to play for the club. Maybe it carries just a little bit of weight somehow.
Would he be your first choice, Jar? Is he your first choice?
Well, Sean Dyche worries me because I think the players we got actually technically, are pretty good compared to, they're not really championship level. I think they've already had lots of mixed messages. They've tried to go long this year. And when we go long, Billy and Lubo and yourself would have seen it, goes up to Solanke, when he was fit and just comes straight back. So we can't hold it up for toffee anyway. We've got to try and play football. We're fucking Tottenham. We're Tottenham. We're Tottenham. We can't just punt it up the fucking... And I'm all for getting results, but it won't work. It won't work. We've got to play football. Square pegs in square holes, in round holes. Yeah. I think probably a 4-2-3-1. I like 4-4-2, but 4-2-3-1, at least then we know what a back four. Romero, Van der Ven, if they're not suspended or injured. Danso, by the way, I like,
Just on Danso, Jar, apparently he's been the kind of link between a lot of the squad here. He's speaking multiple languages. He's been one of the most positive influences in the group at the moment, which is the only real positive message to come out at the moment, Jar, that you carry on there.
Lad, and I tell you what, if we go down, he'd be the boy I'd say, please stay, you're the captain. Yeah? I like the look of that lad. He's sound. I went to the Palace away game. We won. So it's the only bloody game we've won. A few months. I think I was there, and he was fantastic. But I'd have Porro there. I'd have this. I'd play that Sousa even actually. Because let's try and get some left. Some left-sided players there. I'd probably take. He looks like I think he could handle the job. I think. But I'd have Polina and Gallagher. Gallagher, I'd be like, you're my main man. We're going to start again with your career here.
Poor bloke.
You're the general. Because I remember when we went away to Palace and he was on loan there and they beat us 3-0 and he was amazing. He's got some skills, that boy. I know, but he's a robot. He's more than that. And then you've got to get Xavi. So you get Xavi either as your number 10 or drifted in off the left, I'd have Rich or you have him as your number 10, have Richarlison on the left coming in. So you've at times when you've got possession, you've got him going to the far post, Solanke coming short or going near, some basic movement going on. And then in time when we get Kudus back, please God, we can pick some points up. But the thing is, time is of the essence. So you would really need Tudor gone, because you need to start the preparations. Because in my way of thinking, all's not lost for the Atletico game next week. 3 goals to make up. If you got to play, well, you got to be. I can't help but be positive, because I tell you what, when I stop being positive, I'll give up, and I mean it. And I could easily do that with Tottenham. There's been a big switch, a big plastic sort of switch, electric switch, the old-fashioned switch, that I'm ready to push at any time. But I say no, because I've had enough of this now. This just actually isn't funny. It's not good. It's not a good feeling. I don't want to be linked with this thing anymore. It's become a very unlovable.
You're right. It's
club.
Not fun. It's not fun anymore.
Yeah, it's a very unlovable. For me, at times, I can see why it's a hateful. I can see why fans love to hate it, because it's so crass. It's a bit crass. It's quite a vulgar. It's got thinks highly of itself, like some faded old aristocrat or something. You know, I can see why people really, all of football wants us down. You know, all the football, they really do. So I know at Fulham there was a real buzz there in the week or two before. There was a real buzz. They could really statement victory. Liverpool, if I'm Klopp, if I'm at Slot, I'm thinking, you know, against Tottenham, they're going to take the piss. You always have respect for opponents, but you know what? I can try a few things out there I couldn't be able to do with other teams, because this is going to be more, I think, like a training game. You know, we'll go 2 up in 20 minutes, and then it can be a training game. So I'll bring some youngsters on. I'll try a couple of different little things with the formation, you know. So I don't know who, you know, if Harry Redknapp's ruled himself out, that's probably with good reason. I think that probably Vinay and Langer will probably try and stick with Tudor. I think they'll just be hoping they get a victory, and they'll be gone. You know, they'll just see it through. You know, it might be people when they go back and have said we want another interim. What? You've already had one. Don't be done. You know, you don't know what's going on. And at the heart of it, you've got a guy, an old guy at the heart of it who has, you know, it's no secret. I don't think it's not a crime. Probably doesn't actually like football and has no affection or enthusiasm for Tottenham Hotspur. It's probably a business thing, and I'm not decrying that. You know, I think it's probably healthy not to like football. You know, but
I agree.
You know,
I agree.
You know, but so you've got a guy right at the heart of it. That's your sort of long-term issue. I understand it's the short-term thing is, do we stay up? I kind of think there'll be a justice to it. I think we all feel like that. Yeah, we know we actually deserve to go down. It's deserved. You know, Tottenham go down. You can't say that we've had some terrible luck with injuries, to be fair, but a lot of the injuries have born out of a desperate, mad way of playing. Incredible, crazy, mad recovery runs, and you know, people putting fires out like crazy, you know, on the pitch, you know, because we're all over the bloody shop. You know, we're not playing with a calm assurance at any point, you know. So, you know, I think it's I think it's quite likely at this point we won't pick up one more point this season. We are that bad and that lacking in confidence now, you know, where somebody coming in just applying sensible principles could save the day. I think it'd be nice if it's a Tottenham person, pragmatic, but not just long ball, 5-man in defence. I think our best chance of surviving is to go out and, you know, that's why I like 4-2-3-1, where you can actually keep your centre halves back, obviously, although our two like to wander up, and you've got one guy, Polinia, whose job's to sit there, and Gallagher would be the guy, you know. So I like that. That's kind of straightforward. You're the 4 attackers, you know, and you lot, you're more about defending, and you fullbacks, you're the ones who, you know, actually you're in between. When we haven't got the ball, you're defending, right? Or when the ball's on the other side. But then when we come forward, yeah, you know, you've got a nice right peg. You can ding a ball, Porro. So you cross the ball. And you don't always have to play triangles to get behind, because you're not very good at that anyway. So you can actually bend in. Remember, like, bend it like Beckham. Remember David Beckham? Yeah, there you go. There you go. You know, and bend it fucking in, you know. And then you have 2 forwards there. And we've got Richarlison, who is actually supposedly a good first-time finisher. Do you know what I mean? You know, and actually pass the ball when the man's available. You know, you're allowed to move, and you pick the pass. You know, you don't start fucking about at the back and all that all the time. You know, so you know when they start pressing, you start to go long, and then when they sit back, then you press. There you go. What about that? It's fucking great, isn't it? You know, sensible kind of football, and getting their ears and not. And actually, you know, I'm taking the piss, obviously, but, you know, treat them with respect, but keep it very, very simple, and just say to them, you know, you can't go down and have people thinking you're so poor. I thought yesterday, I was convinced before we'd make a better fist of it, because I thought, especially Van der Ven and Romero, they're in the shop window. Well, how wrong was I there?
That's what
You know,
honestly,
I thought, I bet they played better, but you know,
Yeah.
it goes to show that they're really shot. So you need to arm around the shoulder as everybody. That's what you do, and just say to people, you're a great player. Let's start to show this. Let's just write this off. You know, and it would be great if you had someone doing that at Liverpool, you know, for the Liverpool game. And then against Atletico, right, okay, let's give it a good shot. So that's where I'm at with it. But we all know this has been a long time in the making.
I want to come to Lubo. Honestly, Joel, you make some very valid points there. You can't get away from that. Lubo, for you, as things stand at the moment, Tudor looks like going to get this game against Liverpool, but in the long run, I think most of the Spurs fan base feel that he shouldn't be there. Lubo, have you kind of come in your mind to what you feel you would like to see in that dugout for the final remaining games if it isn't going to be Igor Tudor, which again is probably wrong for me to be suggesting and asking you for other options when they've confirmed that Tudor is going to be there for Liverpool at least. But it feels, based on the reports we're having from the players' camp, they're not having him. So where would you turn if it was you?
Right now, probably Tim Sherwood. I would think I'd bring Defoe in as well. They both know the club, and I think they'll motivate the players. You know, this losing run has to end at some stage. For me, I don't see us getting anything at Liverpool. I think providing we don't lose to Forest, I think you break the run. A lot of the time, teams that come off losing runs halt a losing run with a draw rather than a win. I think a draw against Forest, although it's probably going to be the most important game of the season, stop the losing run, get a draw, and then get the other players back for Sunderland and go from there. They'll have a 3-week break, plenty of time to think about the situation they're in. I think it's a mental thing. I don't think it's an ability thing in terms of the team getting enough points to get us out of trouble. I think it's purely a mental thing with these players now. Most of them are internationals, and if this team can get 17 points from the first 9 games, to get 12 from the last 60 available points is a shocking drop in form. So something's got to change. They're not going to play for Tudor. Most of them probably can't stand the sight of him.
Well,
God knows what training is going to be like tomorrow. There's going to be a lot of resentment, and it's like players are going to say, well, you've come in. Who the hell do you think you are? You come in, you're slating us in the press, and this is how players will think.
Yeah,
you're changing the system. You're putting round pegs in square holes. What have you done? You've actually made us worse. And I was all for getting rid of Frank. I thought that first half performance against Newcastle showed that the players had zoned out completely with Frank. But the choice to bring Tudor in at this stage was horrendous. And the owners turned to Paratici for his advice, and he recommended Tudor. And from what I gather, they asked him to set it up, which he did. Those two got sidelined completely, from what I'm told. And if this is true, with that shows you they've got no future if they're being sidelined for a decision that's that big. But what a horrendous decision! Just dreadful. Just dreadful. Harry's off to South Africa for I'm a Celebrity. I would have, when I was asked beginning of Jan what I would do. I did say get rid of Frank and bring Redknapp with Carrick. Carrick's obviously gone. It'll be interesting to see whether they keep him on or not, because he may well be a good. If we don't get Poch, he may be a good alternative for next season. Tudor, I think, will be gone after Sunday. I just don't see how he can stay.
Why are we, Lubo? Why are we writing off that Liverpool game like that by letting him stay? Do you think it? I mean, is there any benefit to letting him have that Liverpool game based on the reports that we're hearing about the disconnect in that dressing room?
Well, personally, I'd have got rid after the Palace game. I think we saw enough in that Palace game, and yes, again, it's team selection, it's the way he sets the side up.
Yep,
it's where he plays certain players. It's just been wrong from day one. When a manager gets it so wrong, game one, okay, he's come in, he's had a look at the players. It's Arsenal. It's not a free hit because no game should want to be a free hit. But I don't think any of us expected anything other than the defeat against Arsenal. But fine, get rid of the cobwebs with that game. Get yourself together. Come in ready for the Fulham match. You've seen what doesn't work, but he's not done any of his homework, and it's been a complete shit show since he came in, and it has got worse since Frank left.
Bill, I want to come to you because I want to be honest with the viewers and listeners here. I think everybody knows my views, Lubo's views, and Giles' views on Ange Postecoglou. So I want to be respectful to the fact everyone already knows our views and just get your take on it, Bill. Because I know, look, I have always said about Ange, I give him the flowers for bringing the trophy home for us. I'm always thankful for him bringing us that trophy. Ange Postecoglou has been speaking in this last 24 hours to TNT, in which he said it's hard for me to comment from the outside when he's talking about Tottenham. But for me, it's just about installing into, show them the kind of players they are. Not that they can be, not that they are. They've already shown that. Postecoglou was then asked to comment further whether he would go back to an X in reference to Tottenham. And he said, no comment. I know there's hundreds of Australian viewers and listeners. I don't want to generalise either. There's a lot of Postecoglou fans that comment on Last Word on Spurs, both pre and post show, that suggest that Postecoglou is the only man that could get Spurs out of this because it is his squad. What's your take on that for you, Bill? Do you want to come back directly to that question? What's your gauge on that for you?
I think everything that he said is exactly right, and that's basically what we've all been saying this whole show, isn't it? He said, you need to put an arm around some of these players and tell them how great that they are. I think he's got us the reader's situation spot on. I don't think Ange can come back just because there's too much baggage in the past, and it's just after everything that happened last season and everything that's happened since, it's just not going to happen. There's no chance that would ever happen. So, but what I do think is really important about that is everything that he said was exactly what we need to do. Is you need to put your arms around these players. You need to tell them they're brilliant. And I think this season has shown, and in lots of different Tottenham squads as well, these guys are essentially babies. They need to be told that they're fantastic all the time. They need to be, and it shouldn't have to be that way. I think what Tudor has done, the only thing that he's done, which I kind of respect, is he's probably told a few home truths to these players, and they do need to hear it in some regard. I don't think doing it publicly is the way to do it, though, and it's obviously backfired massively. But I think Ange was spot on in everything that he said, and the way to get out of this situation is get the confidence back. I just I can't see it happening, so I don't think that would ever happen personally. He's not going to come back for a spell of 7 or 8 games, and it just would never happen. But I do think everything that he said was correct.
Look, I've always with Ange. I wish him all the very, very best for the rest of his career, and I'm always thankful for the trophy. I just want to ask you, Bill, if I can, about Ryan Mason, because, again, this has been ruining its head in the last 24, 48 hours about Mason. I mean, it's an interesting one when you consider the fact that, number one, he's out of work. And, I mean, the key for some would be is that Mason knows the squad. He knows the squad is respected him. He was a big part of that Europa League win. Look, there's an association there, of course, the club having played here and the fact that he came through, of course, our academy. I think you also have to consider that he did win 4 out of 7 in 2021, but then he did go on to win 2 out of 6 in 2023, which, if you look at that over the 2 periods, I mean, it's probably enough to keep Tottenham up. And the only reason I'm mentioning him is because it's not been too long since he's left the club. And with all due respect, his age would suggest that he wants to go back into another coaching role. There's also might be a suggestion that if he was to keep Tottenham up, he'd be the perfect person to steady the ship for Mauricio Pochettino in the summer, if it is Pochettino who's going to come back to the club. And who knows whether Ryan Mason would be interested in working as part of Pochettino's coaching staff at Spurs. Look, this might be all very much me just speculating here. What's your take on that for you, Bill, in terms of the potential of Ryan Mason coming back into manage the club? Or do you just think his time is well and truly gone at Tottenham?
I think it's a really difficult one because obviously he didn't do great at West Brom. Although they've actually got worse since he left. They're now in a relegation fight, and he sort of had the mid to low table. Didn't do great there. So his reputation has taken a bit of a hit. Obviously, because he was our interim manager twice, and he had that sort of difficult spells at times. His reputation with the fans isn't massively great anyway. But I think he ticks a lot of the boxes in the fact that he is, will at least be able to transmit to the players how important this is and how. He's at least will come in and say it's unthinkable that Tottenham could possibly get relegated. So that he ticks that box, and he's not going to go in and rile up the players and get on the wrong side. He'll be a very popular manager of the players. So I can see it in that regard. I think the thing with Mason is there aren't really any other candidates at the moment. There's hardly anyone around. Like
This is the thing.
Going to Hoddle or Redknapp, they haven't been in the game for decades.
Yeah,
it's just the game has moved on so much since those two guys, and I think an ideal situation was maybe you get someone like Redknapp in and Mason together and sort of use a team approach or something like that. I just can't see, but I just think Mason, there's a lot of negativity around him because of the fact that he struggled in the Championship. It's just a big risk whoever you come in. I don't envy the ones that are making the decision. But I think he ticks some of the boxes. I just think because he's already been interim manager twice. I also think Mason was Levy's man, wasn't he? He was who he always turned to. I don't even know if the new Langer and Renai, whether they will even have a relationship with Mason. So it's a really difficult one. It's a really, really difficult decision. I think there's just no one. There's not really any outstanding. There's no one out there you think, right, we have to go and get him. The ridiculous thing about all of this is we should have done this in December when Thomas Frank lost 3-0 to Nottingham Forest. Then you get someone and you got the whole January transfer window.
Yep.
And now we're reaping what we sow because there's no outstanding candidates. And whoever has got it to come in has got to be tasked with keeping Tottenham in the Premier League. And that's a really, really difficult job at this point. So I don't know what the solution is. If Mason came in, I think it would lift the crowd a little bit and get the players back on side in terms of personality. But, it's a huge risk after he didn't do great at West Brom.
It's mad, isn't it? Because people were suggesting, why are you talking about Ryan Mason? Why are you talking about Sean Dyche? Why are you talking about Harry Redknapp? Why are you talking about Tim Sherwood? Why are you talking about Glenn Hoddle? Like you just said there, Bill, the market is so sparse right now in terms of who can actually come in. I don't think there is a viable person. That's probably also why we are here with Tudor as well, and why he's still here, because of the market that we're in, and maybe the fact they do need a couple more days to see what else is out there.
Can I just say something? The fact is, there's certainly a dearth of Tottenham related kind of candidates. Just tells you what a mediocre club we've been in terms of producing deep thinkers about football, possibly over the years. Time was we could have gone and got Joe Kinnear, who was one of our proper Tottenham stalwart. I don't know where Chrissy Houghton is, but Chrissy Houghton would have been fantastic. That guy, he was a Tottenham fan he was at Charlton for a while. Nice fella. He was he was there. I've forgotten his name. Do you know the guy I meant? He was at Charlton, and he was a Tottenham fan. He managed Charlton, and I think he managed up north. So I forget the geezer's name. I think he coached for a while, 10 years ago or something. I can't remember the geezer's name. But there were these people, various Tottenham connections. Chrissy Houghton, Joe Kinnear, they just aren't really now, and it just goes to, whereas, the media is full of ex-Arsenal players and Liverpool players and Man United. You don't see that many, the kind of club, the rich tradition, the lineage has kind of got broken, which is always a dangerous thing, but tradition gets lost, lineage gets lost. It's such an important thing in martial arts, in spiritual traditions. The lineage is so important, and it's like it's kind of a bit stretched gossamer thin now, really. You have to. I wouldn't see Ryan Mason, who's obviously a nice fella, but you need somebody with charisma, or you're fucked. You need somebody who's got some gravitas, or you are fucked. You'd be better off. You'd be better off to get the players to decide themselves.
Who's going to dig us out of this? Billy suggested it there, and this is what Henry Winter said to me and Billy over at the weekend as well. He reckons it's going to be the players that are going to dig us out of this more than the manager. Do you agree on that, Jar? Will it be
that's what it's actually the players. You might even, honestly, it'd be a radical thing, and it may well not work, but you might be better off sat in the shooter going, off you go. Here's your payoff and all that. Thanks for coming and trying, and get the players. You got people like Romero, and just say, well, you got us into it, lads. Let's have a chat. And you get honestly, that might be the thing to do. It's going to be the players. All you need is somebody who can just galvanise, who's got that sense of presence about them. When we all know those people, when we meet them in life, they've got a leadership kind of quality. We all know that. It's just something people. It's a fascinating thing. Some people have got it, and some people haven't. Captain Mannering's the archetype of the bloke who didn't have it in Dad's army. So you see lots of Captain Mannering types. Lubo, know I'm talking about. But so it's down to the players. I think somebody like Hoddle, because I think he could be pragmatic enough. He's still as a student of the game, so he would probably be my sort of choice. He's got something about him. He knows that. You just know Glenn Hoddle knows the game of football. And he knows what it is to be a player. It'd be my choice. Maybe with Chrissy Houghton coming in to assist him. But, it's really down to the players. It's going to be down to the players. And you've got to get them sort of, back aside. I don't think they're going to be... It's very easy to think of them as spoiled brat, and I'm sure there's some of that going on there, but you will find there'll be a reason, there'll be some sort of reasonableness there with most of them. A very interesting thing on YouTube the other night, a very good interview with that Matthew Benham, the guy that owns Brentford.
Yep.
And talking about, it's still, obviously, I think it was quite a recent interview, still very complimentary about Thomas Frank. Felt he came in and got this whole respect thing going and players being kind of grown up and all that. And then it was interesting because I saw a lot of Henry Winter's thing, the way he was talking, and I started to kind of think the comparison, but Henry Winter obviously very taken with the culture and the approachfulness of the players and how engaging they were and all that, and obviously, I think there was an implication that wasn't the case at Tottenham. There's often with Tottenham quite a bit of scowling and posing going on, and you do get that with players. One of the big faults with players and musicians, you get this with musicians, they often think they're better than they are, and so I think some of these players think they're just a little bit better than they actually are. But it's what you got to work with, and definitely you could. It would be possible to get a tune from these fellas that would be save the day for Tottenham and keep Tottenham up. But we're in a perilous position. I think at this point tonight, it's far more likely we would go down than stay up.
Well, just on the point there to close it, guys, if I can, and coming over to you, Bill, and then to Lubo as well. We are hearing suggestions of multiple players being linked away from the football club as of this moment, Bill. I'll start with you because I know Lubo is going to have a view on this as well. There's suggestions that Archie Gray is increasingly becoming a target for Bayern Munich, which again, the timing of these articles coming out would maybe give a degree of concern as to where this is being leaked, if this is agent-led, if this is merely paper talk. So that's coming from the Mail that Bayern Munich are increasingly interested in Archie Gray. There's also understood to be a battle going on for Lucas Bergvall, where both Chelsea and Aston Villa plan to test Tottenham's resolve over Bergvall. And in addition to that, we also understand that Bayern and Barcelona are among the clubs in the pursuit of Luka Vuskovic, who is not keen on returning to Tottenham Hotspur at the moment. That's in addition to, as we know, Christian Romero, who is open to leaving the club in the summer. And it's understood that Tottenham are also open to allowing Christian to leave. That's just after signing a new deal, which saw him being made club captain. And of course, on top of that, we are also expecting Richarlison to be leaving the club in the summer as well. But Bill, as you know, this is just the minimum kind of players that might be leaving, because there are suggestions that when you look at the precarious position Tottenham are in, it's listed those Spurs would like to keep would include Van der Ven, Solanke, Gallagher, Kudus, Xavi, Simmons, the youngsters of Gray and Bergvall. But there are genuine concerns around how Spurs will manage to keep these kind of players if they are relegated. It's understood that recruitment is expected to focus now largely on players in their mid-20s and over who can bring experience and leadership. And obviously that goes into that point of around Andy Robertson, where Spurs failed to get a deal done in January. Just how worried are you, Bill, by these reports that we're getting of multiple players being linked away from the club on the eve of what, again, is huge games to come that's going to define the future of this football club?
I was speaking to Jar off air about this before we came on, and this is just what this is his agents starting to think of their exit plan already. Trying to desert a sinking ship, and it's just noise. The most concerning thing for me, I don't really care about players leaving next year at the moment. I just care about the noise and the distraction, which is why, to Jar's point, you need a really charismatic manager, someone like Ange was for that Europa League final, who's going to say, block all of that stuff out. The only thing that matters now is keeping Tottenham up, which is why it's really important to get that manager in. If it was me, what I would say to this group of players now, because I don't really care about any of them, if I'm honest with you, I'd say, look, if you keep Tottenham up, you stay up, you do your job, we'll accept a fair offer for you in summer and you can all fuck off and we'll start again and we'll rebuild. We'll get Pochettino and we'll rebuild from scratch. If they go down, you stay in and you can get yourselves out of this mess. It's at that point now where I think if they want to go, just go. I have no particular affection to this group of players other than, I love Archie Gray. I think, there's a lot of serious commitment issues to the player in the club and connectivity to the fans. It's all gone. It's all been evaporated this year. And just tell them, look, if you keep Tottenham up, we'll accept a fair offer. You can go and we'll start again. Tottenham will be here in the Premier League next season. We'll start again. But if they relegate us, I think they should be made to stick and deal with it and get us back into the Premier League themselves, because it's just, as I keep saying tonight, this is their responsibility now. It's not our responsibility. It's going to come down to that group of players, and they should be the ones that face the consequence of it. So I'm not worried about any players leaving or anything like that. The only thing I'm worried about is it being a distraction. And I think this is why what we're reaping now, and we spoke about this with Henry Winterick, none of these players have come through the ranks at Tottenham. Not a single one of them in the squad. No. There's not a single coach that came through the ranks at Tottenham. There's not anyone on the board that came through the ranks at Tottenham. And this is what happens when that happens. They see a sinking ship and they want to go. We had a core, under Pochettino, we had a core of players that came through at Tottenham, and Tottenham was their club, and it really meant something to them. We got one player like that who's playing in Scotland at the moment, Mikey Moore. So, and a couple of players that are off in championship loans, but there's not a single first team senior player at the moment that came through the ranks at Tottenham. So it's no surprise that they're happy to please, agent, go and get me to Liverpool, go and get me to Chelsea, go and get me to Juventus. And if that's their attitude now when we're in the mid of a massive battle, then good luck to them in summer. They can go, but they have to keep us up first.
Bill, totally agree. Lubo had the last word on Spurs. What do you think, Lubo, on that point there from Billy? Do you agree in his view and the players? Is this unnecessary welcome noise right now? Do you think this is agent-led, the suggestions, the rumours coming out mid-season about players looking for moves at the moment, Lubo?
Just a lot of it's rubbish, isn't it? A lot of it's filling up papers. A lot of it is selling papers. It's just nonsense. Although obviously, if Bayern Munich are looking at Archie Gray, I wouldn't be surprised. But
a good player. It's a good player. Listen, he's going to be a very good. He's going to be a very good player, Archie Gray. No doubt about that. I know you've been passionate about that for a while. He is going to be a very good player.
He's committed to the club. So he's one of the few players that actually is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Listen, and listen. The kid's got a great grounding with the family background in football. But as far as I'm concerned with this season, I said earlier in the show, for me, it's a mental thing. They've got the ability. Most of them are internationals. And I think they've just got to get their heads right. They've got to get somebody in to get them organised, because I think it'd be an absolute shambles if you've got Romero as player manager. I just don't see that happening. Get a Sherwood in, get a Hoddle in, get somebody in. Last thing I want to do is Sean Dyche would probably be would if you're looking for someone with experience in the Premier League, then you'd be looking at a Dyche or Allardyce. But if either of those managers was given a long-term contract at Spurs, it would be like, oh God, we really have hit rock bottom for me. We can win it. Listen, you're right. When you look at current form, you can't see us picking up another win this season. But football's a funny game, and you just need one win. You need a couple of breaks. We've had no breaks in terms of refereeing decisions. recently, apart from obviously the Mickey van der Ven's tackle last night, but now I think the referee made up for it by booking every Spurs player that committed a foul after that. We just need a break. We need something to run our way. I think last night typified the way we are. Richarlison should have buried that header. Great save from Oblak. Would have been 4-2. 15 seconds later, it's 5-1. I think that typified the season that we're having.
Yep.
And the players have got to pull their finger out, get back to basics, start doing their job, get their head right, stop feeling sorry for themselves, and get out. Even personal pride, because surely other clubs are looking at players and thinking, looking at our players and looking at certain players and thinking, would you want them if you're in the trenches? Are they any good? Would you want them? And if players down tools, would I want to buy a player? There are so many players worldwide that are of a similar level. We don't have any world-class players that stand out. So if you don't get Van der Ven, you can go and get plenty other centre backs around that you can get. And if these players do zone out, switch off, heads elsewhere, clubs are going to be seeing this. They're going to be looking at it. Romero with his bozo moments. I mean, he calls out the balls, and then 4 days later gets himself sent off and banned for not only cost us the game at Old Trafford because we were banging that game, and he misses the next 4, and we've lost a lot. So
agree. Yeah, agree. Listen, it just making. I find it, at a point where we are right now, to have so many of these stories that are coming through the grapevine around Kinski expecting to seek a summer move away, Vicario looking for a move.
Ricky, if we go down, they'll all go. Hardly one of them will stay. So I was saying they look like a championship side last year, which they did. Except we finished 17th. We were closer to the championship than we were the elite Premier League clubs. But the irony is they're a championship team, but not one of them will play in the championship if we go down. That's the irony of it. So they'll all go. But it's a non-story because I think part of this stuff with these stories, the media love it because the headline, fire sale at Tottenham, they'll all get moves. They'll, Solanke, Newcastle, Bergvall, Liverpool or Chelsea. Archie Gray, the jury's out. I think he's going to have a career in football. I'm not sure how high, and it could be Bayern Munich. And I'll be surprised if they weren't looking at him. But they'll all be looking at Tottenham, because it depends who would be doing the business at Tottenham. They might think they can get in and get some bargains out of there, But the thing is, if they do stay up, as Billy said, you're going to have a rehaul of the squad anyway. They've been crap. They're just not good enough. So but all these stories you're bound to get. It's not what you're going to get this noise because it's. Everybody and their dog wants Tottenham down. They all want Tottenham. So media, there's a bias towards other big clubs and all that. And everybody now...
You're 100% right. It does feel like the common goal at the moment this season is everyone would love to see Tottenham get relegated. I agree.
And every club, every dressing room, they all want to beat Tottenham. They want to put Tottenham down, So you need to really invoke quickly some sort of siege mentality. Romero is key because he's the leader of the pack, that fella. Yeah. So you either work with him and get him well on side, and he's your de facto extension of the authority on the pitch. And he has got a leader thing about him, or else you'd send him home if it's that bad for these last few games. That's probably a mistake. You need to get him on side, and all that. But they'll all be going. And just to think about this centre half, I'm sure if you go down to the championship, the boy in Hamburg won't want to come back. But you're not going to get a story. Oh, he wants to keep his options open, So they get a quote from his agent. Where at the moment we are, all very self-important, the agents, aren't they? The way we're not, sure what's going to happen, and we're keeping our options open. It's like, well, actually, you're under contract to Tottenham. So you're going to have to cut, I would have thought. Yeah. But we don't know. But then again, you don't know what relegation clauses there are, if any, And it's just, as I said earlier, the club's become very unlovable. and sometimes it's kind of just hateful, you know. And as Lubo said, you know, he's at Atletico and there's a terrific atmosphere. You know, whenever I go to away games, the atmosphere is great. I've got nice people either side of me. My son's got a seat up in the south stand where I sit. I've got nice people both sides of me, really nice. The young geezer next to me, Irish geezer, lovely bloke. He's already said he's going to renew if we go down to the championship. I said, wow, that's fantastic. Like, you know, I've already been there, you know, in the second tier once. So, you know, I don't know if I'd want to sort of do it all again. I haven't got that love. I'm going down to see Wimbledon Orient next week, and I feel more kinship with Wimbledon, AFC Wimbledon, because it's my culture. I like the culture of the club. I like the people there. You know, it's relaxed. There's a sense of humour. There's a realism there. Tottenham's just, you know, bad-tempered. You know, a lot of the core thing. We all know what happened. That can be put right. You know, it can be put right if the club starts firing on all cylinders. But you can have a conversation like this where I sit. No problem. You can have a chat. You know, because it's very quiet, and you know, and people are paying top dollar. And that changes the dynamic. When you're paying top dollar, they've made it a product, and it's a top tier product. So we're not getting £90 gains worth, are we? You know, it's so they're not delivering what they're supposed to deliver. So you know, and I think next year, if we go down, it would be very interesting to see what happens. Leeds took 21 years to get back. I don't think that would happen, but it'd be interesting to see.
We know though, Jar. We are going to be a cup final for every team next season. We will be a cup final for every team. And
well, we only just come up in the 70s. Only just. It was even then. It was not an easy league to come up. It's a very tough. And by the way, it's interesting. You look at the stats. We could all assume we're going to have people like Lancashire, Donnelly, Mikey Moore, who look great players, but there are less youngsters blooded in the Championship than in the Premiership, incredibly, statistically, I believe. And that's because everyone's desperate to get out of the bear pit. Everyone wants to get the hell out of Dodge as quick as fucking possible, especially if they end up going down. Well, and for a Tottenham to be in this position, to even be not just where we are now, speaks volumes that's been allowed to happen. There's not been caring, loving guardianship of the club, because if you own a club, you have a duty of care to the fans and the mental health of the fans. Sorry to use a trendy fucking term. You know, you have a duty of care to kind of make people happy with your product. You know,
it's never been the case. You know, Levy was honest. He actually said, you know, we're buying this as an investment.
That's right. Right back in the day,
They never bought it like an Abramovich or Sheikh Mansour, etc., etc. You know, in fact, most of them. You look at every single club. You look at they've all got to work within parameters, FFP, PSL, whatever you want to call it. They're changing it again for next season, and all the chairmen, the owners, push their clubs as far as they can with this. We've always got loads of wiggle room. You know, Spurs can always spend 300-400 million before falling foul of the financial rules. They've never been interested. There's never been a plan. There's never been a strategy. It's always been profit before glory. So when, you know, we fortunately had some very good players during Ian's tenure, and we've got over the line a couple of times, but that's been it. You know, few and far between. Between 61 and 99, we won 13 trophies in 39 seasons. Between 99 and 2025, we won 2 in 26 years. So it's gone from 1 every 3 years to 1 every 13 years. And
when I first started supporting Tottenham, it was after the double team. I saw us win the FA Cup 67. We won the League Cups when the League Cup was a tough competition in, I think, 71. It's 70 and 71. Villa and then Norwich. We won the FA Cup in, you know, that was after relegation. You know, that was after Birkinshaw. 84 we won the UEFA. We were a top team, and we would go out and when Greavesy went off to it, we bought Chivers, Martin Peters. We'd buy big players. It was Tottenham. We had a style, and there was a philosophy there. We go back to the days of Vic Buckingham, Arthur Rowe, passing football and all that. That's just been completely lost. So obviously we all talk about the styles of play, but the problem is now we don't have the basics in place where we can then start to introduce the top proper Tottenham philosophy. We lucked out with Pochettino. Sure. Under Redknapp, we could have challenged for the league. And every time I come in here, I always talk about the time we were 2 or 3 top players short of a league-winning team, and we needed a striker and a forward, and we got Saha and Ryan Nelson, who were coming to the end of their career on free transfers.
If you ever doubt what's ENIC have been about, they spent 1.2 billion on a grounds and didn't even include a statue within that grounds or a museum.
Yeah,
and that tells you everything about these owners. Everything. So nobody should be nobody should be surprised at where we are today.
Well, I was somebody just telling me today.
I'll go further than that, and I'll just say that this hasn't been a proper football club since Venables left in '93.
That's well. Do you know what? Even before then, with Irving Scholar, when they got rid of Keith Birkinshaw, the Yorkshireman would have put in Bow haircut, and Dow Yorkshireman go well with Tottenham. But that was just then Lubo. And as he said, there used to be a football club here. It's been on the wane. We've never allowed people like that.
Scholar loved the club, and he was ahead of his time in terms of bringing in secondary non-football pitch income.
We went public then, I think, didn't we?
Correct, but he didn't have the know-how to put it into action successfully, and we ended up 18 million in debt to Lloyds Bank, and they got Nat Solomons in to negotiate an 18-month period so that we could get the debt paid, and then you saw Gaza sold, didn't you?
Well, incredibly, suddenly we were in trouble. I think Hummel. It wasn't. It was the was a. Am I right there?
No, there were 2 or 3. I think Hummel were involved. There were 2 or 3 that were involved around that time. Sugar came in with Venables. They bought the club, and
then they fell out. The
banks gave Spurs unlimited credit then.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
But in '93, if Venables had stayed, we had lined up, I was told, Des Walker, Tim Flowers, and Roy Keane. Can you imagine slotting those 3 in? And '95, when Sugar didn't want Bergkamp, we were sort of at that level, the same level with Arsenal. And Bergkamp went to Arsenal, and Wenger came in a year later, and we went that way, and Arsenal went that way.
And Arsenal, hang about, Ricky. Arsenal had David Dean. Whenever we've had somebody like that, and I thought David Dean was a very likeable guy and loved Arsenal. Whenever we've had a similar kind of people, they don't last at Tottenham. And enthusiasm's everything. So I'm doing a session today with a guy that runs a big record label. You think he could just be satisfied with where he's at, but it's still, I'm working with who's a complete enthusiast. And it's lovely. Because his enthusiasm is infectious, And at Tottenham, you feel like this bad faith seeps through the club.
I don't recognise my football club anymore.
That's it. Well, that's what. And so when I say there's a big switch there, I'm serious. I'm not just saying it. I gave up booze and drugs nearly 40 fucking years ago. Best move I ever done, and because they weren't causing me happiness. Well, this shower of shit with Tottenham doesn't. And I might just press the button on it and it can fuck off. And I'll still go and see lower league football and I'll miss what was. But it's like me saying, I've missed the London and well, that's gone. That's the past. It's over. I can't go back to the 1970s where I loved it. I would love to go, but I can't because it's not fucking there anymore. And Tottenham's not really, that's my worry now. I feel sorry for the young. At least we won that cup last year. And my younger boy, both my sons, my younger boy was got up on one of the roofs opposite the thing and just loved it. And do you know what he said? He's got more sense than me. He said, I'm not going this year because they're not. And he went to a couple of games because he said that, you know, Thomas Frank's the wrong guy. This is all going to go wrong. These players aren't good enough. I'm not going to be there to see it. I'm not going to torture myself with it. So he still watches the games on telly, but he just said he called it very early on. And he was right, you know. I get sucked back in a little bit, you know, and I'm really, a part of me wants us to go down. I've got to be honest, just to get it over and done with. Just get it over and fucking done with now. It's not my club anymore. Let it fucking go down and fuck off. In a way, is how I feel. And I'm not just saying that for effect. I actually mean that. And I think that's a shame, but that's how it is. And I love that club. The Cockerel, the great players we've had. There was something about the magic around White Hart Lane and the club. And it's just been turned into like a kind of dead zone spiritually for me, you know.
Yeah.
And it goes back a long time, you know. This has been a long way from back as Lubo's better than me on all the. I don't know I can't remember all the details, but it goes back a long. We're talking decades and decades and decades, aren't we, Lubo? We're talking a long time.
Listen, the club was built in terms of the history. You started, you know, listen, we first club, in fact, the last club to win the FA Cup, 1901 non-league club, 1961 first team that won the double, 63 first team, British team to win a European trophy, etc., etc., etc. We used to break transfer records for fun.
Yeah,
you know,
and responsible for the way, indirectly for the way Barcelona play, for the way Ajax, that lineage started with Tottenham in the 50s. Vic Buckingham.
Don't know. Not sure I agree on that. I think there was a guy called Curver who started who's still around, who started the total football style of coaching that Ajax, that Cruyff learns Ajax. He took it on to Barca. Pep's taken it on another step.
Have you heard of Vic Buckingham? Have you heard of it? You've heard of Vic Buckingham, haven't you? Yeah. I for me, my intuition tells me it's a Tottenham story, Lubo. I'm sorry, I have to cling to that.
That's okay.
Get him in his interim.
Yeah.
Arthur Rowe.
And
Arthur Rowe was push and run. Curver with total football with Holland. It is different. It is different. Listen, if you're going to say that Spurs, that there are one or two coaches, I think that influenced Puskas' Hungary, and the coaches of the early 50s with Hungary, then yes, I'll agree with you on that one.
Yeah, well, no, I know you've got Renus Michaels, no hierarchy. It's postmodern. You know, you don't have a position. It's bourgeois. Everything's in a state of flux. Sophisticated football. Our players are a long way short of that, though.
Oh my God.
Well, I will just say to the 15,500 that are watching, if you press your red button, you can catch Jar and Lubo on a separate channel discussing the history of the club.
No. Lubo and Billy, your pair of gents, been a pleasure tonight being in your company.
Boys, you know what, though? This conversation here, just to close it on this is for a lot of people out there so cathartic. For many that are agreeing that listen and watch this show, they do recognise and feel what you're feeling, Jar, about the disconnect and just what has happened to their football club. So don't let me even just say that to you there take away from the fact that what you and Lubo have been discussing there at the very, very end of this show is how a lot of people are feeling right now. They don't recognise what Tottenham have become. And I think going back to what you said, Lubo and John, your kind of memories, and you go back the years of Tottenham, that is how a lot of people expected and wanted Tottenham to carry on being. And they don't recognise who Spurs are. Now, a lot of people, I think, are going to Spurs, searching for that connection like me. We can't quite find it. And all I just sincerely hope, Bill, I suppose to close with you, Bill, is that at some point we're going to get that connection back. Because right now, I think, I have to say this, it's the audience, it's the viewers, it's the listeners, it's the guests, it's you wonderful people that come on this show that probably are the only thing at the moment really connecting me to Tottenham. Because when I go to the ground, players, manager, stadium, don't really get it there, Bill. Is that fair?
Oh, yeah, it's very fair, mate. And that's, when I was talking about how there's no one Tottenham in the squad at the moment, that what the guys were just talking about there, all of that is being stripped in front of our very eyes. And the only thing I will say to end it on a round, a bit positive, is there has been one man in recent history who's got it, and who did, learn from that history, and who did use that history to be Tottenham himself. And that man's a man who was in the stadium last night. So maybe that's how we get it back. That's the only thing. That's the only bit of hope I can offer, is that there was one man who got it in the modern era, and let's hope we get him back at this football club.
Agree. Listen, Jar, thank you so much, mate. Always an education. You're a dime. I know you love coming with Lubo. These could be 4 or 5 hours in general. Lubo, you need to get more sleep when you come on with Jar, I tell you. The wonderful Ian Lubin, thank you so much, the star of the show, and of course, alongside...
Old blokes like me, we go on and on and on. It's the way... I'm sorry.
Do you know
sorry,
what?
I mean, I'm worse than Lubo. I go on and on, sorry.
Don't apologise, mate. This is what it's all about. Listen, if we don't talk about it, then at some point, when will it ever improve, Bill, right?
No, listen.
Bill's on mute.
That's the identity that we've been talking about every week, isn't it, Rick?
I know.
That's what we've lost.
Yes. Go on, Lubo. So close us.
And you know what? Half the fan base, unfortunately, have only seen these last two owners and don't get it, haven't lived it. So there's no connection there, and people think that this is what Spurs is about. Levy's improved the league position on average. That's bullshit. We were winning trophies. We had great cup nights. We were never a league team. We only won it twice in 100 and whatever it is, 44 years. But
we were a fortress at White Hart Lane. Was a fortress as well, season in, season out, wasn't it? You'd only ever have 1 or 2 defeats there.
And look at it now. Now we have 1 or 2 victories.
That's exactly. Yeah, that's absolutely true. Yeah.
It is insane, guys. It's got to get better, hasn't it? I always say to Bill, it can't get any worse, and somehow it seems to. So it's got to change. It has got to change. And it needs to change fast. I know, Bill, just to close on that point, I know, I don't know if you want to repeat what you said in that last show with regards to change for Spurs and the plans for the remaining upcoming home games, Bill.
Yeah, listen, there's a group of lads, not just change for Spurs as well, a group of good lads getting together. We're going to try and create some atmosphere at that Forest game. We're going to try and greet the team bus. We've got the players, we've got the manager, but we have to know as a fan base that we want to do everything that we possibly can to get behind this football club. We've got to try and give them that extra 10%, 5%. So look out for the plans that's going to drop this week, and we're going to try and really have an amazing atmosphere for that Forest game, really get behind the players. Because while our leaders and our owners are incompetent, at least we know our fan base are going to try and see us home. So that's all we can do really as fans, isn't it? But we're definitely going to go down swinging, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Look, I want to say a massive thank you, Jar. Thank you, Lubo. Thank you.
When we went down the last time, I think we were getting 7,000-8,000 at some of the away games. It was just and the same thing. It's like pruning something. You prune it back, and it comes back stronger even at times. So you just don't. They probably get sold. I worry they won't sell because the asset would have.
That's what I think.
They won't want to sell when it's a cheap. That's a concern. That is a concern. Because we would like new owners would be wonderful.
I agree.
So I'm still going on. And another thing, and furthermore, at 6 o'clock in the morning, before you go, Ricky. But anyway, I'll shut up now. Yeah.
Ricky's changed the name to Last Wobble on Spurs.
Oh, sorry.
We've been
and that lineage, that lineage of beautiful football come from Preston. That's why we played in the white shirts. They had very skillful passing players to Tottenham, to Ajax, to Barcelona.
You might be playing them again next year.
Yeah.
Going back to the beginning, we're playing Preston.
We will. Yeah. Actually, we will be. We won't play Millwall because Millwall will be above us, Billy.
This football club, honestly. Listen, from Mr. Wobble there, I think it was wobbled himself and frozen on us. Lubo, thank you. Bill, thank you. Thank you, everyone, on this edition of Last Word on Spurs. We'll be back before you know it. Who knows what we'll be discussing and where we'll be discussing it and how we'll be discussing it. We'll be back with you. Guys, thank you ever so much for your support. From myself, from Lubo, from Char, from me. We've been the Last Word on Spurs. Thank you.